this beautiful tiny house on this beautiful property. It was probably the biggest goal that I've ever set for myself. I designed it for one person and one small dog, and now it's 2 grown adults and 2 dogs. It does get kind of tight with all 4 of us in here, so we've had to make some adjustments. The downside about a loft like this is making the bed is a workout, so I have to prepare myself whenever I make the bed to get a little bit sweaty. Hi, my name is Addie, and this is my tiny house. Before I owned a tiny house, I was living in single bedroom studio apartments in Seattle. I was living alone with my dog, and I really wanted to buy a house, but I just could not afford it with today's housing prices. So I started looking into alternative solutions and looking into building my own tiny house. I found Traci with Big Bliss Tiny Homes, and I loved her design. She was based in Tacoma, so she's only a few miles away, so it was really easy to be able to work with her and meet with her on the build site and go check out the progress of the tiny house as it was being built. I wanted it to feel comfortable to live in full time, which meant things like I didn't want to climb into my bed with a ladder. I didn't want to have my clothes storage in my kitchen. I really wanted it to feel like a real home, just on a very small scale. So when I was designing this tiny house, originally it was going to be just for myself and my small dog to live in full time. It turned out that I ended up meeting my husband, who already owned a house. It just made more sense, and then this tiny house turned into kind of our getaway vacation weekend cabin. Now, along with that comes the fact that I designed it for one person and one small dog, and now when we do come and stay here, it's 2 grown adults and 2 dogs. So we've had to make some adjustments. It does get kind of tight with all 4 of us in here, but we really love this area, so we spend a lot of time outside anyway. We found this great piece of property. It's 2.5 acres, right along a river that had a perfect spot for the tiny house to face the river. We can hear the river rushing during the spring and summer. It's beautiful. Both me and my husband work remotely, which is awesome, and we're very blessed to be able to do that. We have Wi-Fi here, so we can work here and spend a few extra days and turn a weekend into a long weekend, or even a week. Sometimes we'll stay for long stretches of time and enjoy it. The total cost for Traci to build was about $65,000, but my dad was the one who did the exterior, so we used a lot of found and leftover materials from job sites that he works on. He's a siding contractor. Obviously, I didn't pay my dad, but I did pay for the materials for him to do the exterior. So that gave us quite a good discount on the total overall cost. Welcome to the exterior of my tiny house. My tiny house is 10 feet wide by 26 feet long. It's a little bit wider than a standard tiny house. And then our deck here is actually the exact same footprint. So the deck is the same size as the tiny house, 10 by 26. We do have an awning that we added here. Obviously this doesn't travel with the tiny house, but with the amount of snow that we get here, we really needed this awning so that our door would not be blocked, because as a lot of tiny houses do, our door opens outwards. So we needed to keep this whole doorway free from snow so we could actually get into the tiny house. When we first bought this property, nothing was on it except for a well. We had to install the well pump, as well as our septic system, as well as all of the power and water. And of course, we had to pull the electricity from the road as well before we even brought the tiny house out here. So we love this deck. One of our favorite things to do, especially in the winter, is use our propane fire pit, which is really nice. It's also nice during the summer when there's burn bans. We can't use our wood fire pit, so we are happy that we have propane as well. We really use this space differently based on the season. So in the summer, we actually have a nice big umbrella with a picnic table up here, and we eat outside during the summer, and then during the winter we bring out the fire pits and enjoy a cozy night by the fire. On the property, in addition to the tiny house, we actually have what we call our bunkhouse, which is just a shed that has electricity, flooring, walls inside of it. We use this mostly for friends and family who are visiting. Obviously, there's no place for them to sleep inside the tiny house. So if we do have people visiting, they can sleep in there. There's a cozy little electric fireplace in there, so it stays pretty warm. Further on, we actually have 2 campsites that we've built on our property for RVs. There's a power pedestal and a water source for them. It's right along the river, and we rent those out throughout the summer for campers to come and use our property to camp and enjoy the beautiful area that we're in. So on this end of the house, we actually have kind of our utility area. We have our on-demand hot water heater. And then we have these 2, what we call the cubbies. And one is for tools, one is for all the other stuff that you would put in like a shed. Because it does get so cold here and we can get up to like 4 feet of snow during the winter, we had to do a lot to really winterize the tiny house. So we did add some foam board skirting around the bottom to try to keep that heat from escaping from out from under the house. And you can also see we have some insulation wrapped around our hot water heater as well. It's actually hooked up to a cord heater, what we call a cord heater, that plugs in, and that keeps those pipes at a non-freezing temperature during the winter as well. So when we go through and winterize, we plug that back in, and that keeps our water heater pipes from freezing. This is like our favorite new addition to the tiny house. Obviously this was built after the tiny house was put in place, but this is our outdoor shower. We've made the shower all out of cedar planks, and you come around this side and we have a really nice private outdoor shower. We love using this shower. It's so much bigger than the one inside the tiny house, so we use this a majority of the time. At some point it does get too cold to use it. That's why we're still very thankful we have an indoor shower. But yeah, using this during the summer is just magical. Hi, welcome inside. Let me show you around. As you first come inside, we have a seating area right here. We call it the bar. We have 2 windows that open outward, which is great. 2 drawers for some storage, and then if we do want to eat up here, we have these nice chairs. To be honest, we don't actually eat up here all that often. We end up sitting on the couch, but it is nice and it has a great view of the mountains outside the window. At our bar here, you can actually see there's a foot ledge here, and so when you're sitting, it's kind of the perfect height to put up your feet, just like you would be sitting at a bar at a restaurant. But actually that's the wheel well, and we just came up with a clever way to kind of hide it. And then our seating area here, we brought the couch from home. We already had the couch and it just fit perfectly in this space. We have a small ottoman here that has some storage inside of it, which is great. We have this beautiful shelf that my dad actually built me years ago when I moved into my very first apartment. When I was building this tiny house, I knew that I wanted to have it here. It's really special to me, so we actually had the builder put the lights a certain distance apart, so I knew that I could fit my shelf in here. And now we just fill it with artwork that we get, souvenirs we get when we travel. It's a really nice focal point when you walk in and see that shelf. When you're sitting on the couch, you have 2 views out both the window and the slider, and we just have beautiful sunrises and sunsets on either side. So it's one of my favorite places to sit with a cup of coffee in the morning. We do have a slider here, but we don't actually use the slider because when I found it secondhand. I only paid $200 for it, which was a pretty good deal. And I didn't realize that the slider opened on the wrong side. So it actually opens back on the right side. It probably would have made a lot more sense to open it on the left. But because of that, it's not very convenient to actually use that as an entrance. So we really just use it for a really big window, which is great. So you can see all the walls are actually made out of white birch plywood. I just really liked this look. I knew that I wanted this tiny house to feel kind of like you were in a cabin without it being overtly like a log cabin. So I kind of did the panels to make it look like kind of how logs would be stacked in a log cabin, kind of reminiscent of that. I really, really like how it turned out, and we get a lot of compliments on it. It's also really nice because wherever you see a seam, you know there's a stud there, so it's very easy to hang things, which is really nice. And then I decided to add these beams as well. They're really just for looks. I think they're really pretty. I think it adds some interest to the top of the space here, and Yeah, I don't know. I envisioned hanging potted plants, hanging maybe a projector from them someday. I just really like them, and they make the space look bigger in some ways. Just a couple steps over from the living room is our kitchen. I really love this kitchen. I really wanted it to be up against one of the long walls. I've seen some kitchens that are kind of at the end of a tiny house, and I felt like that might be hard for more than one person to maneuver around. So I really like having this long against one side. Beautifully done kitchen. Our builder built all the cabinets from scratch, which was great. We got to pick out the hardware for them. We actually keep all of our food and pantry items in this little corner unit, which looks pretty small, but our builder was very creative in getting it big and open down there. There's a Lazy Susan turnaround inside there, and so we keep all of our dry goods down in that corner. I really wanted the open shelving because I wanted a chance to show off some of this pottery that a good friend of ours made for us. The backsplash is a stick-on tile. I specifically did it in a shape to kind of resemble a mountain range because we're right in the middle of the Cascades right now. I think it turned out really good. It was a learning curve for sure to stick them up there. There's some spots over on that side that we won't get really close and show you. But by the time I got to this area, I was kind of a pro at it. The countertops is kind of a funny story. These are just from IKEA, and it's not even the pattern that I wanted at all. But it was in the middle of the pandemic and building materials were very sparse, and this is pretty much all they had available in the price range that I had, and they had in stock at that time I needed to buy them. So definitely want to replace these someday in the future, but they've been really great up until now. Here we have our oven and range. We love this. It's actually an RV stove. It has 3 burners and then a propane oven. It heats up really quick. It's very nice and cozy in the winter, and this is all you kind of need in this size of house. And then here we have our fridge and microwave. It's a smaller than normal fridge, but it's a good size for 2 people. It's actually bigger than I thought I was gonna have, and then when I realized that 2 people would be living in here, we got a slightly bigger fridge to accommodate that. And then for heating and cooling, we actually have a mini split up here, which is really nice. Again, we are in the mountains. It gets very cold during the winter, and so this has come in handy. It heats the entire area really, really well. And then in the summers, it actually stays pretty cool in the tiny house. I think it's just pretty well insulated, but it does get very hot here in the summers as well. And so it's very nice to come in out of the heat and have the AC as well. And next we'll go and check out the bathroom. Come into our very spacious bathroom. I've heard this actually is a pretty large bathroom for a tiny house. There's plenty of space to move around inside the bathroom. Now our shower though is probably the tiniest shower that I've ever been in my entire life. It fits, and so that's great, but honestly we don't use it all that often. We have an outdoor shower on the back of the house that we use majority of the year. This is only when it's really cold outside that we use this indoor shower, but it's here in case we need it. So we are actually underneath the lofted bedroom, so it's a pretty low ceiling for a bathroom, and because of that we had to mount our shower head from the ceiling itself, and that was all part of the plan. So our builder, when she was building it, she routed all the plumbing to come up into the ceiling and to be able to come out through the ceiling, which is great. It gives us a nice rainfall effect when you're in the shower. So you can see here we have a real flushing toilet, which is a bit of a luxury in a tiny house. I realize that. The initial plan was actually to have a composting toilet. This whole house was going to be off-grid. But then when we found the property that it's on right now, just our plans for the future of wanting to potentially build an actual cabin on this property as well, we decided to put in a septic, and so we ended up just hooking up the toilet to the septic system. So we actually have a real flushing toilet, which is pretty cool. Right over here we have our wonderful vented washer dryer combo. This was really important for me to have in here, and it's actually a rare vented one, so it vents out the side of the tiny house, which is really nice. It dries really well. You know, these types of washer dryer combos, people either love them or hate them. So far I have nothing but good things to say about this one. Okay, so as we head into the stairwell here, you can see these stairs that we have. These stairs are really great. They all have storage inside of them, so the lids on each stair step lift up, and we keep just odds and ends dog food in here. They've been really handy just to create a little bit of extra storage in the tiny house. I also wanted to add a little bit of color to this area because when you walked in, it's pretty much all of this beige wood tone. So I got some just stick-on wallpaper here and cut out some pieces and put them on the front of the steps. And I think it really adds some nice color to this area that was previously kind of all one tone. Okay, so we're up here in the loft now. We have some storage here for our clothes. It's actually a children's wardrobe, which works out really well for the size. I couldn't find anything else that would fit in the space. We also have these here that we use for our dirty laundry, and that works out pretty well as gives us some more counter space here to put water, drinks, things like that. It was really important to me to not have a ladder to climb up into a loft area, and so I saw this design on another YouTube video of having this kind of walkway and then you climb up into the bed. This is really nice too for getting dressed. I didn't want to have my clothes down in the kitchen or in a different area, so I wanted clothes to be with the bedroom and the bed. So this is an area where you can get ready and get dressed, and then we have the loft here when you're ready to actually climb into bed. To get into the bed, we have this nifty step here. You just unhook it from the wall, extend the legs, drop it down, and it gives you a little boost up. It does take some getting used to, but we're very used to it now. You just have to watch your head as you're going into the bed, but it works out pretty well to hoist yourself up into the bed. You kind of have to crawl under, so then you have this open space with the skylight, which is nice, so you can still sit up straight. We love the skylight so much. It offers so much light. We also have a shade that you can pull shut and open. It's very cozy. It feels like you're in a nest, and at night you can really see the stars really well through the skylight, so it's great. The skylight technically does open. We don't open it very often. It's just not needed, but if we did want to crack it open, we could. We did install a TV up here. We both really love movies, and it is really nice to come up here after a long day and put on our favorite movie as we're falling asleep. The downside about a loft like this is obviously someone is always on the inside. So I am the inside person. My husband is on the outside. So yes, it's definitely a really funny maneuver to try to get out of bed to go to the bathroom. He's just used to it by now. I think I just kind of roll over him and he falls back asleep. So making the bed is a workout. So I have to prepare myself whenever I make the bed to get a little bit sweaty, because you just are getting yourself into some really funny positions to try to make it. Honestly, we don't really make it. If I lifted up the covers here, nothing would be tucked in. The sheets aren't tucked in at the bottom. It's just not worth it to go through all that trouble. One thing I do love about the loft is we have built in these little cubbies along the outside, so we can put things like water, the remote, earplugs, things like that. And I have some over on the other side here too, where you can stash a few things here. So with a mattress in a tiny house, putting it on a flat surface, obviously you want to make sure you're getting some airflow in there. So we actually just used IKEA slats from a bed that we already had and placed them underneath here. For the most part, they do pretty well. They don't shift around. It also helps that we are in a very dry and kind of arid climate around here, so humidity is not something that we have to deal with, thankfully. If anything, we're trying to add a little bit more moisture into the air in here. But luckily we don't have any issues with mold or anything like that because of how dry it stays. I think I'm just so grateful that I am in a place where I can have this beautiful tiny house on this beautiful property. I spent so long thinking about this and planning it and saving up for it, and it was probably the biggest goal that I've ever set for myself that I then accomplished and saw all the way through. And then I also just love spending time with my husband here. I think it's so nice for us to get away from the city. Every time we come and we sit down and we relax, we say, oh my goodness, I love it out here. It's so calm and it's so peaceful out here. I think it's just a great escape from our everyday life to be able to have this amazing place. I just still pinch myself every once in a while and I can't believe it.
Thanks for watching this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Please make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you soon with another unique home tour.